Hey, if the defensive intensity does not pick up in the second half, Ole Miss is not going to have a happy ending tonight. We're going to talk about the National Signing Day preview. Yes, there is going to be some activity tomorrow. And of course, Brad Logan is supposed to pop by the show a little bit as well. But this is kind of a watch party version of the Locked On Ole Miss podcast.
You are Locked On Ole Miss, your daily podcast on the Ole Miss Rebels, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to this watch party edition of the Locked On Ole Miss podcast. Ole Miss is already down by 16 instantly in the second half to South Carolina. This just looks like it is not going to end well. The defensive intensity is just not there, and Ole Miss is kind of suffering for that. We're going to have Brad Logan on the show. He's going to talk about some stuff going on with recruiting and all of his stuff and inside the Rebels, so hang around for that. We'll continue to give our super smart observations as well on the basketball game that, like I said, is not going particularly well at the moment. And we'll talk about National Signing Day being tomorrow. I'll regale some stories kind of from my time working at Rivals.com. And, you know, I was in bed at once with James Franklin on the weekend that Robert Kimdichie and Laquan Treadwell and all those guys committed. I might talk about that a little bit as well. We'll also take your comments. Remember, if you comment, post where you're commenting from. We are interested in that as well. But thank you so much for turning into the Locked On Ole Miss podcast, your team every single day. Anyway, I'm Stephen Willis. I do the Locked On Ole Miss podcast, and this live stream, we're going to, like I said, watch party. We're going to do National Signing Day. We're going to do Brad Logan whenever he comes aboard as well. So let's start off with National Signing Day. And it's sad at the moment that you think about National Signing Day and Ole Miss generally is only going to have one, maybe two signees. A preferred walk-on or two could show up in the fold as well. But basically, it's Jarnoris Hobson might be the only player that actually truthfully signs. He is a player out of Northwest Community College. He was a preferred walk-on at Mississippi State. And you just have a situation where this player was coming in. And you're like, well, why is Ole Miss taking this player? What is going on here? What is the ultimate story with this player? And the answer to that is he is the brother of Jacoby Hobson, the defensive end linebacker out of Lake Cormorant High School in North Mississippi, who many people are kind of expecting that Ole Miss has a better than average shot to land as it goes on. This probably just helps that out just a little bit as well. So if Jacoby Norris comes in, that leaves Ole Miss, which a surprisingly amount, and we're going to have it on the show tomorrow. So if it gets repetitive tomorrow morning, I apologize. But you have a situation where Ole Miss has like 22 players that they've signed, counting the early and the late signing period, a top 5 class of defensive linemen between Jeffrey Rush, Kamarion Franklin, William Eccles, Cam Beavers. I think Cameron Clark as well. We should fit him in there as well. That defensive line class is pretty good. And if you look at what Ole Miss is doing, they're recruiting a lot of offensive linemen, a lot of defensive linemen through the high school ranks, and they're going to get the high quality, the high level stuff out of the transfer portal, because we've rightly spent the better part of the last month and a half talking transfer portal, and Ole Miss has the number 1 transfer portal class in the country. And, you know, whenever you have that situation, it's going to garner all the headlines. Well, the high school recruiting, especially defensive line class, is worth talking about as well. And I think it is interesting to see exactly what's going on. Ole Miss just cut it to 15 in the basketball game, if you guys are watching that as well. We're going to get to the comments in just a second. Like I said, if Ole Miss was up in this game and it was a close game, there'd be a lot more people tuning into the chat as it speaks. But we're doing a watch party down 15. It's kind of a difficult situation. So when you look at Ole Miss in the recruiting and what they're doing, I mean, there's really no way to get around how important it is. This Ole Miss basketball team just can't rebound to save their life. If it's a loose ball, it's like they're allergic to it. And it's weird. But there's so many teams get second chance points against this basketball team because they're like allergic to loose balls. They're allergic to rebounding. Like if rebounding wasn't even an option, this might be the best basketball team in the country. But the fact that it is a major, major flaw in what's going on with the basketball team. Like I said, this is probably the worst basketball team that Chris Beard's going to have. And I've said all along that the goal should be 9-9 in the SEC. But this team is flawed. I've said that all along. And if you look at them rebounding and all that, you can cover it up sometimes. You cannot cover it up sometimes. Now, when they play really good teams, which they play Tennessee, Auburn, and now South Carolina, all of them in the top 15, they've kind of been exposed a little bit. Now, the LSU loss was actually the bad loss. That was the one that Ole Miss fans probably want back. But the other four I can understand a little bit. So we'll see what happens whenever the competition drops down. I think Ole Miss has Kentucky. Kentucky's good. Okay. Kentucky, whenever they get going, they can really get going on you. But if they don't and they struggle, they can kind of get clogged up from time to time. And then you have 2 games against Missouri. So that's the way you get to 7. So you have to beat A&M, you have to beat Georgia, you have to beat Mississippi State on the road. That's your path to the NCAA tournament, in my opinion. Like I said, this is a watch party as well. In the chat, let me know where you're watching from at the moment. And Jerry Moore is watching from Pascagoula, Mississippi. Azrael says hotty toddy, and he is in Jonesboro, Arkansas. My brother-in-law lives just outside of Jonesboro, Arkansas. I think it was like Batesville, Arkansas. I think that might be the town. But that's my brother-in-law. Wayne Terrell says watching from Clinton, Mississippi. Hotty toddy. Thanks for watching, Wayne. Wayne Terrell says it's also painful to watch. And Jay Cannon says, is there going to be a SU? I don't know what that means. Ole Miss can't hit with guided missiles. They don't have guided missiles at the moment, but yes, I get your point. Hot Tot says Stone County, Mississippi. I'm going to assume Wiggins. That is the town I know from Stone County, Mississippi. Jay Cannon says Lumberton, Mississippi. Hotty toddy. Thank you very much, Jay, for tuning in and all that you do. Lumberton, I passed the signs going down there from McGee to Hattiesburg. Every time I went down to Hattiesburg, I saw the signs for Lumberton. Jay Keith Garner is watching from McGregor, Texas. And Jonathan P. is watching from Louisville, Mississippi. Not Louisville, Louisville. That's how you know if somebody is from Mississippi as well. Like, you have a situation in this basketball game. Ole Miss needs to just make some shots and get some stops. That needs to be like Morrell just hit a 3 that cut it to 14. You need to get a stop. Now, then after that, you need to figure out a way to go because South Carolina is shooting now. South Carolina came out at a torrid pace as this game started. Just a torrid pace from behind the arc. One time they were like 7 for 10, but now they're not quite where they were. And we'll see exactly how that goes as well. We also have Terry Hurst from Tupelo, Mississippi. Do you think there'll be a surprise signing tomorrow? I don't know. There is sometimes, but we'll talk about it in just a second. Let's bring Brad Logan into the show. Brad, how you doing, buddy?
Doing well, Steven. How are you, sir?
Pretty good. We're doing a little watch party in the basketball game. I'm telling you, man, this Ole Miss defense right now, it's broken. There's something wrong. I don't know what it is, but they're almost like they're allergic to loose balls, whether rebounds or balls on the floor.
Well, Carolina was shooting, I think, 62% from the floor
Mm.
at the half, and that's just tough to hang in there. Ole Miss was shooting pretty well itself, had two players with 10 points apiece, but they just can't stop them. And, we talk about how hard it is to play on the road, and Ole Miss is no different than any other team in the SEC when it comes to playing on the road. And, with the stretch coming up, you're at Carolina, then Ole Miss is going to take a little time off, and then they'll go back on the road against Kentucky. It's a tough stretch, and you just got to try to survive at home and win a couple on the road.
Yeah, and that's honestly all you can do. You just try to. You're probably going to be, after the stretch in Carolina and Kentucky, 5-6, and that's not me just saying that it's wrong. It's just me trying to honestly being realistic and playing on the road with what we're seeing. But after that, I think you have Missouri. I think you have Missouri twice. Honestly, you have A&M, you have Georgia. That's your path to 9 wins in the SEC. Honestly,
yeah, it is, and you've got to go on the road to Mississippi State in there as well. But yeah, I mean that's your path to 9 or 10, and that's kind of where it is right now. But you're going to have to steal one on the road, and I think Georgia's the best opportunity right now.
All right, let's change the subject because, believe it or not, tomorrow is National Signing Day, and it's weird that this is happening with such little fanfare. I guess that's the age we live in now. But is Ole Miss going to be active tomorrow?
I don't think it's going to be very active. I think everything we've seen, I'll be interested to see kind of what happens, but I don't expect anything dramatic other than chalk. I think the main thing Ole Miss was hoping for is Malik Willis, the JUCO wide receiver, along with Deion Smith, the other top JUCO player out of Holmes Community College. It does not appear either one of those players will make it for May. And it appears that, will not be here in February. They're going to probably be here after the summer session, which, not the end of the world, but I think you look at this Lane Kiffin offense, it's important to get as many players as you can, as many reps as possible, because it's a very, very difficult offense to learn, specifically from a wide receiver standpoint. You'd hate to throw two guys in that you're going to be counting on that late in the game. So, you'd like to get them in as soon as you can. It appears they're going to have to go through summer sessions at the local community colleges before they can make it to campus. But, yeah, I mean, tomorrow I don't expect anything crazy because the signing day, honestly, I don't know why they just don't have one in December. And continue to move forward. So I don't expect any surprises.
I think football signing day, they should have one, and it should be in August, honestly.
Yeah.
You don't even worry about the football season, do the transfer portal thing. I mean, they're already so taxed, the coaches, in December. I think if you just move the high school signing day to August 15th, all this would be solved.
Yeah, I mean, just whenever that day is, just make it one. And I think that would be so much better. We've seen so much come out here lately with Greg Sankey and the SEC, and unrelated but kind of related. We saw Stephen, I know you and everyone else watching saw the release come out that it appears that the ESPN, Warner Brothers, Discovery, Fox, they're gonna step away from not step away, but make it a direct to consumer. And reading the tea leaves, we expected that to happen at least within the next year to 2 years, but it appears it's going to happen sooner rather than later. And I think that plays into what happens with the SEC network, what happens with the Big Ten network, because those are the two big players in this. So looking forward, what happens with the SEC under the tutelage of Greg Sankey? Are they going to break away from the NCAA? I think each day that goes by in this ridiculous NCAA ruling going after Tennessee, and now all of a sudden they're going to have egg. They, being the NCAA, are going to have egg all over their face when the lawyers get finished chewing them up and spitting them out. I think we're one step closer every day to breaking away from the NCAA and having a super conference, whether that be 32 teams, whether that be 64 teams. I don't know what the number makeup will be, but I think we're not far now from having a super conference and potentially doing away with the NCAA. In regards to football, I think it will stay in place for basketball and the remainder of the sports.
I don't know that it's going to stay in place for basketball either, honestly. And besides, oh, by the way, the joke is like Warner Brothers, ESPN, and Fox is breaking away to form their own little direct consumer. They're just going to call it cable. I think it's hilarious that it's all the way back to the way it was. But honestly, I take YouTube TV right now. I have it, but I only have it for sports. So if the price is somewhat competitive, I think there's a chance that I might cut the cordless. I don't know. I don't even know how to phrase that.
Yeah.
So
well, I mean, it would still be a streaming service, correct? And they'll call it, insert name here. But I'm like you. I have YouTube TV, and I have it basically for the SEC network, and that's what's airing this awful basketball game right now, and so. If ESPN Plus, SEC Network, and all of those particular, channels go all under one roof, then I'll turn this off and I'll just keep, I'll go to whatever the new one is. It doesn't matter to me. I'm just fascinated to see in the grand scheme of things how the networks play into all this, because we know how much the SEC Network and the Big Ten Network, how big they are. You look around. There basically is no Big 12 network. It's the Longhorn Network. They're coming to the SEC. You've got the ACC network. It's basically a poor man's Jefferson Pilot, because it still has subsidiaries with Raycom, which people that remember, Raycom was the beginnings of Jefferson Pilot. I don't even know what's out west anymore. So if you'll follow the tea leaves, if you'll follow the viewership, you'll see that the SEC and the Big Ten, they control everything in this.
Yeah. And honestly, if you go back to what you said, the ruling that the National Labor and Relations Board had saying that Dartmouth's men's basketball team can unionize, which that affects private schools. So that would affect Vanderbilt if you're looking for an SEC team that could affect that ruling. But also there's lawsuits all over the place, just all over the place. The NCAA is in dire straits. And my thoughts on it is that you're going to have a situation to where you're going to have to, these guys they're going to be viewed as employees. It just is going to happen. And if that happens, that's the end of Title IX as we know it. It's all women's sports, all non-revenue sports. They're going to basically be club enterprises like Ole Miss hockey. And then you'll have basketball and football, maybe. I don't even know if baseball in that situation would survive.
Yeah, I saw your tweet and I thought a lot about that when you posted that. And, coming from a small Division II school at Delta State and appreciating baseball, winning the national championship back in 2003, winning the football national championship in 2000, and then winning the women's national championship before I got there. Understanding the importance of women's athletics with softball, with baseball, not with baseball, with softball, with women's basketball, and just having the appreciation for women's sports and understanding what all goes into that. I've always followed the sport very closely. I've always followed softball, and it's always been fun to watch the softball College World Series. When you see things like this happen, it's almost like, I'm glad this happened. If you're that collective group of people, but what happens is the result is not what you intended. The result may actually be detrimental to what your objective is. And I'm afraid that if we can continue to see this go, swimming and diving, rifle, all of what we call the Olympic sports, and what it's not nice to say is the non-revenue sports, there may be going by the wayside and become what you deemed, I think, perfectly as a club sport. I am a firm supporter of Title IX. I completely support women's athletics. I completely support the Olympic sports. The problem you get into is if you start making college players employees, there's not enough revenue to go around, and then you get yourself into a bit of a pickle when you determine, okay, if they're employees, where do all of these, I think you look at Title IX as a whole, what happens to that? Does it dissipate? now that they're employees? Does it apply or does it not apply? I don't know the answer to that. That's beyond my pay grade. But I do think it opens Pandora's box, and I, for one, am not ready to see that happen.
Yeah, and the other thing is, and this is a real thing, if student athletes get viewed as employees and employees of the university, do you even need them to have to go to school? Is eligibility even a thing at that point? I mean, we're simply talking about this is the future is in doubt in the future of college athletics. I mean, whether it even exists is in doubt right now.
Well, I think then you start after asking yourself if they don't go to class, they being the students, it's essentially a minor league system. And are they covered under, you start talking about if they're employees, are they paying taxes now? Are you going to W-9 them? Are they going to be 1099 employees? Are they? So there's so many questions there. Secondly, I think you bring up a great point. If they're a part of this minor league athletic system and they're employees and they don't go to class, are we even talking about college as a whole? I mean, it's loosely a college as it is, with a small percentage of students at colleges that play athletics that are upper echelon that we know don't attend a ton of class. So there are so many unanswered questions. And that's why I think it's so important to get an advisory committee together. That's exactly what the Big Ten and the SEC are doing. They're so tired of watching the hand wringing by the NCAA. They're so tired of seeing this ridiculous rulings that came out from the NCAA, specifically in regards to Florida State and to Tennessee. Those two programs are not doing anything that anybody else is not doing, that are playing the game of NIL. At the end of the day, there has to be some accountability, and that's why I'm so glad that they've got the advisory committee together.
Yeah, and the advisory committee, in my opinion, is a shot across the bow. That is the SEC and the Big Ten saying, get your house in order or we're gone. Now, I think the NCAA, my conspiracy theory at the moment, Ole Miss just cut it to 7, by the way.
That's right.
My theory, the conspiracy theory is the NCAA is trying to run off the top 60 or so programs in college athletics, because below that, they know how to function. They can handle it. Whenever you have a situation like the NCAA is comfortable governing Delta State. That is the ballpark. That is their wheelhouse where they want to be. They've cut it to 5. Ole Miss is coming back. But you have a situation to where they do not want to play in this NIL space and all of this stuff. They do not feel comfortable governing Alabama, for instance, but they are comfortable governing Delta State. They're comforting those smaller schools. And I think the NCAA is purposely chaotic at the top and doing all these things to force that breakaway to happen so they can reorganize, because I think they realize there's no way the NCAA in its current form can fix what is happening. And a lot of these lawsuits and everything else go away with these power schools going away as well.
Yeah, that's definitely a thought, and it's not completely out of the realm of possibility. And it makes sense when you put it on that type of level. But yeah, you also have to understand too, if those particular top echelon teams that are dealing in the NIL space do break away, you're talking a large financial piece is going to step away as well. So that's going to dip into the coffers of the NCAA, and that's going to be a ton of money that does not put back into the NCAA. So, I think you have to kind of to waive that as well. It just makes you wonder, just as foolish as the recent, the recent releases that came out from the NCAA that just, quite frankly, didn't make a ton of sense. So it's a situation where it's going to be interesting to watch. But I just stand by the fact is the college football world are going to listen to the SEC. They're going to listen to the Big Ten, and they're going to listen to leaders like Bill Hancock, and who's of course over the college football playoff. They're going to listen to the executives of ESPN, and most importantly, they're going to listen to Greg Sankey, the commissioner of the SEC.
Yeah, and I am real interested to see. I'm in the process of setting up and trying to get Ole Miss has cut it to 3, by the way. It's absolutely nuts. Flanagan is on fire. I'm trying to speak with Keith Carter and get that set up. And one of the questions I want to ask Keith is this dichotomy that is set up to where the NCAA is going directly after collectives, but collectives on the top part is such an important part of what's going on in the NIL space. It's like, what is going on there? That is something I'm interested in, an athletic director type level of what he thinks about that. Because the NCAA is actually going after collectives right now. This Tennessee situation is 100% directed at the collectives.
It is. And Keith would be a good person to talk to. He's got his finger on the pulse, and he understands kind of the way that NIL and the way the college football, but college athletics as a whole are going. And Walker Jones is someone too, I know you're familiar with the Grove Collective, has done a great job. He's talked at Congress and he understands the situation about what's legal and what's not legal. But here's the thing is the NCAA, I don't think they understand. So, it makes you wonder who else are they going to go after. But I do think that we've seen kind of maybe the end of that because of all of the legislators in Congress and the folks over in Washington. They're starting to pick their heads up as well. When you start talking about Cory Booker and Martha Blackburn out of Tennessee, those are names that really make the NCAA, I'm guessing, really look up and think, hey, what are we doing here? And I do think we'll hear from them soon.
Yeah, I picture what Kansas State is going to get 3 years probation for all of this. Is that the way this ends?
We'll see. I mean, it's I can't see Tennessee doing anything with Danny White coming out so strongly and basically saying you're not doing anything to us. I forget their chancellor's name. I think Dondi Flemister maybe or something like that. I don't remember the name. But she came out and she was very open and said, basically, you're not doing anything to us. We've even seen like the governor. We've seen all these people come out and say, basically, saying everything that Ole Miss didn't say a couple of years ago. So they're paving the way for teams how to deal with the NCAA.
As Ole Miss has this massive comeback that's happening right now as we're watching this. Actually, I'm going to ask this question. Which basketball players can we expect to return next season? Is that like it's like TJ Caldwell?
It's just so much water to pass under the bridge before you could really determine who's coming back and then who's either going to transfer or who's going to go to the NBA. So
yeah, I think
so many things need to happen before you can really answer those questions.
Yeah, eligibility wise, it's Flanagan, Murrell, Brakefield, Juju Murray. I think Brandon Murray is due back. He has another year. He can come back.
Yeah.
There's so much stuff to come through. Enjoy this team is my thing.
Yeah, that's the biggest thing.
By the way, John Forcade came on my show last week. One of the coolest interviews that I've done. John Forcade is actually before my time. He's before my time. My last game was like Steve Sloan's last. So it was 82, not the 81 year. But John Forcade told the story of the legend of him wearing an Ole Miss helmet in Tiger Stadium for the Louisiana All-Star game. He told that story. He told completely really broke down the game-winning play that beat Mississippi State in 1981.
Yeah.
That was really cool as well. And his double fumble that he picked up after he threw an interception, the Rams fumbled it twice and Forcade ran it like 85 yards for a touchdown. He talked about that as well. That was a really cool interview.
Forcade was one that a lot of Ole Miss fans will remember very fondly. It's a heck of a football player. And
Ole Miss has cut it to 2.
Yeah, heck of a football player and one that we'll definitely remember very fondly. Stephen, thank you very much for having me on today.
No problem, buddy. So Brad Logan got off, I think, on the game getting really tight and everything. He wanted to do that. So thank you to Brad Logan for coming on the show today. And we'll talk to him again. But we're going to continue this second half watch party. I did a tweet in the first half that I said, and everybody can go to my Twitter or X timeline and see. I said that this game reminded me a little bit of the Auburn game in reverse. And I'll be danged if the same thing isn't happening. And Ole Miss has figured some stuff out offensively, and they're really defending them. And South Carolina is not shooting at the level they were. And lo and behold, this is happening. And Jamarian Sharp has been a real key in this game. South Carolina just hit a 3-point shot as well. All right, let's catch up on the chat. The NCAA has been a joke for years. I'm surprised they've lasted as long as they have. You are absolutely correct, Jay Cannon. Let's see. He's just going to jack it up. So we'll see. It's 5-point game with 5.5 minutes to go, or 6 minutes to go at the moment. They're going to crash the glass. It was cool. Let's see. William and Mary, hotty toddy from New Orleans, Louisiana. Squeeze Liberal said 7 minutes left, and we still got one foul until they're in the bonus. Matthew Mitchell says, well, as you said that, Stephen, they hit a 3. Yeah, that's absolutely correct. It absolutely nuts. And it's a ball game now. At least it isn't a boat racing. And if nothing else happens, the amount of them kind of putting it together, playing hard, making a full game of it, that needs to be commended. And that honestly is really true. So thank you very much for that. I'm just glad it turned out to be a good game, because there was a little bit of time when like South Carolina was up by 17 or something like that. So really interesting stuff indeed. I do think that the number one player that you need to watch for is Jar Norris Hobson for signee, if you're looking for a signee on National Signing Day. Ooh, 3-point shot to cut it to one possession, 66-63. Here we go. I'm terrible at this. I wanted to try a little bit of a watch party, but I didn't want to go all in. So I invited guests and things like that to try and make it work. This is the time of year where you try stuff. So we'll see how it goes. They play so fast, they get out of control for whatever reason. 5 minutes to go in the game is 66-63. But Ole Miss has made a game of it. They've made a game of it. And Ole Miss has the ball down one possession. It's awesome. Hotty Toddy from Ripley, Mississippi. Nathan Rutherford says, if Beard can do this in year one, I'm excited to see what he can do in the future. The intensity has picked up in our players. Yeah, it's noticeably different. Noticeably different. Why is our 7'5" guy shooting a jump shot? Come on. Oh, thought he nailed that one. That would 4 minutes to go in the game, 66-63. I am pretty fired up. Pat 0311, you still have time to catch some Indiana Jones to help the comeback. Indiana Jones Friday did not work. Almost got boat raced by South Carolina and Auburn. Case and Hubbard says, hotty toddy from Hernando, Mississippi. I've never been into college basketball, but you have put me on. I'm so ready for football season. Absolutely ready for football season. Squeeze Liberal, that's 3 opportunities to take the lead we just wasted. And Nathan Rutherford says, I'm going to have my 3rd heart attack with these games. It's absolutely nuts. We'll see how it goes. This is interesting. We're doing a watch party at the moment. If you want to comment about the game, please do. As we are watching what's going on for the better part of the next 25 minutes or so, 30 minutes or so. So we'll talk about that. We'll put a nice bow on everything, probably start it before it actually ends, and then we'll get out of here shortly after 8:30 Eastern time. If you guys will bear with me on that. So I'm pretty fired up about where this basketball team is now, win or lose. They fought back in this game. They've honestly done enough in this ball game to where if they lose the game, I can not necessarily be okay with it. That's not what I'm saying. I won't be like sounding alarms like the Auburn game at the end of the game. I won't be sounding alarms when that happens. But Ole Miss has a chance. They can win this game. Cameron, are you watching the ball game right now? Yes. We are kind of doing a second half watch party as we speak. Thank you for commenting. So we'll see exactly how it goes. I'm pretty fired up. Pretty fired up about what can happen indeed. We've talked to Brad Logan tonight, who talked about around Ole Miss and around the Dartmouth case and the NCAA and all of that stuff. That was cool stuff. We talked a little bit about the basketball game as it's gone on, and we talked about National Signing Day as well. Is there any chance that either of the 7-footers will be back next year? I don't think so. Here's the question. I do not think so. I think they're both one and dones, but there's a freshman coming in, Bowl, that is a 7-footer that is recruited. He's the top player in next year's recruiting class. So he's a big player. So there will be a 7-footer. I don't know if there'll be these 7-footers. Let's see. So, yeah, I am pretty fired up. Ole Miss is down by 5 points with 3 minutes and 38 seconds to go in the game. They had a chance. They cut it to 3, multiple possessions to get this thing down to a tie ball game. This game feels honestly like a situation where if Ole Miss gets even, they're leaving. It's one of those games to where if Ole Miss can get the lead, they're probably not going to look back. But the hard part is going to be actually getting there. So Ole Miss needs to make some shots and do what they need to do. Austin Nunez, by the way, has played a good bit tonight. And I am a big fan of Austin Nunez. And rimmed out in and out for Flanagan. That was a tough break. So we'll see. Let's see. Do we give Juju the ball since he's been clutch all season? I don't think Juju's in the game right now. I think Austin Nunez is the guy that's in the game at the moment, and he does an excellent job of playing point guard. Now he has to shoot the ball a little bit better, but Ole Miss needs to go down and get this thing down to a 1-possession game again. If they do that, it gets interesting. But Ole Miss, they have to kind of ball up a little bit and get it going. So we'll see how this goes for the Ole Miss Rebels. But yeah, again, thank you to Brad Logan for coming on the show. He did have to go. He gave us like 15, 20 minutes. It was absolutely awesome. And I am extremely thankful that he came on. Talked about signing day. It's not going to be active. Do not confuse lack of activity with lack of efficiency. This staff had an unbelievable high school recruiting class, but I do think that the only player that's going to sign tomorrow is Jornoris Hobson, the brother of Jacoby Hobson. And if you look at the highlights of Jornoris, he's a good player. Now he's like 5'9", 190, but he's a good player. Let's see. Squeeze Liberal says we need Nunez on defense more than Juju on offense. I really like Austin Nunez as a player. That might be a rare situation for me, but I enjoy Austin Nunez as a player. He seemingly does all the right stuff. And I enjoy watching him playing point guard. He reminds me a little bit of the point guards that Ole Miss had with like Mike White, those guys, Todd Abernathy, where you're just the purely pass first point guard. And Alston's really good with really crisp, really sharp passes, and he's good at getting it pretty well into the pocket of them. So it's a big situation here that's coming back. 3 minutes to go in this ball game. It's going to be absolutely huge. Ole Miss, I think Ole Miss has the ball, and they're going to break it up. I'm not sure if Ole Miss has the ball, actually. There maybe was their turnover. I forget what happened. Kason Hubbard, I train with a coach and he has contacts. We might get an O-line for Northwest. He'll be a walk-on. That makes sense. Do you think Hobson becomes a major contributor or offering more help sign his brother next year, Pat? I think it's a little bit of both. I think he has a chance to contribute. If you look at his highlight, he's a good player. Oh, you got to put that away. Miss more layups. I think it's more of a Zedric Woods situation with Laramie Tunsil, where you get him to get the bigger named prospect, but he turns out to be a good little contributor. I think that's possible with Jarnoris. So we'll see exactly how that goes as well. So 2 minutes to go in the game. Ole Miss just can't seemingly make plays when they need to make them. The defense in the second half has come alive. They've looked better than they have the entire game, but they just stopped making shots. They need somebody to make shots. And for whatever reason, Brandon Murray isn't that guy at the moment. This is a chance for Ole Miss to get this down to one score. Ole Miss needs to get this down to one score. Just get it down to one score. Take a good shot. Minute and 33 in the game. And my 16 seconds, it froze up on me. But yeah, just get a good shot and get this thing down to one score. You can't win the game or even force overtime if it's a 2-score game. You have to get it to one score before you go on. I mean, this is complex basketball theory. I'm telling everybody right now. Jerry Moore talking about Jarnoris Hobson. His brother is a good receiver. Yeah, for his size, he is really good. But like I said, he's a stocky little receiver. He played on the outside at Northwest Community College. I expect him to play on the inside at Ole Miss. He catches the ball in contact, in traffic. His hands are really strong. I think he has a chance to contribute and do a little bit more than we expect him will, honestly. 1:32 left in the game, 16 seconds left on the shot clock. Ole Miss needs to make the shot to get this thing down. Brandon Murray is running point guard for whatever reason. And good grief. Ole Miss drew up a perfect play, and Sharp got a dunk blocked. How do you get a dunk blocked? They just can't. They haven't made plays when they needed to make plays. They haven't made plays when they needed to make plays. And I'm beginning to wonder if they're going to be able to do it. Come on, we need a shot. Put the ball up. There we go. It's a one-possession game. But it's a one-possession game where you have to have a stop. So do you foul in this position? I don't know. Actually, you probably need to foul because you need to get to the point where you can get into the bonus because I don't know. It's a situation to where it's difficult. Ole Miss only having 5 fouls is difficult. Next foul for South Carolina, and you go to the line, but they're not going to let you get a 3 off. Yeah, Pat says, how did you get a dunk block when you? Yeah, upsetting. But we're down 36 seconds left to go in the game. I'll have Tim Thomas on tomorrow evening. So tomorrow morning's podcast, there's no basketball in that one. But tomorrow evening with Tim Thomas, we'll be talking about this basketball game. So everybody be ready for that. Switch liberal. This is where Juju comes back in. I think, yeah, he needs to. Austin Nunez has played pretty well, though. No, doesn't look like he's coming back in. Ole Miss has a foul to give, but if Ole Miss does that I don't know. Do you wait until the shot clock goes under 19 seconds or something like that? So it only goes back up to 20. So here's the inbounds play. Looks like Ole Miss is full court pressing as we speak. All right. Another timeout is called. Absolutely nuts stuff. Full timeout. So, of course, we're going to get an excellent commercial break. But like I said, don't expect any basketball talk on the show tomorrow morning. That'll be tomorrow evening. This week we have Tom Vanderford on Saturday, Josh Guest, I think on Friday, Brantley Sanderson on Friday, Brian Smith on Sunday. That is our guest lineup for this week. And we're also trying to get Keith Carter on the show as well. Should be a lot of fun indeed with that. So I'm pretty fired up. Just waiting to see the end of this ball game. It could end. This watch party's been pretty fun. Thank you all so much for contributing to it. We don't know how much of a post game we're going to get because we kind of talked about it this whole time. Yeah, Ray Duncan says, man, that bank 3 is big now. So why does always someone bank one in against us? I don't know. It's the weirdest thing. It's a situation where Ole Miss is trying to get that 3-point shot. Now, Ole Miss is undefeated this season in games less than 5 points or 7 points or something like that. This looks like it's not going to break that. So we'll see exactly how it goes. I'm pretty fired up. Kind of fired up. So we'll see exactly how it goes. Let's see. Yep, they're still going like an official review. And the referee just kind of acted out what happened. Brown Eyed Girl says, that's supposed to be Hottie Toddy, I think, from England. I hope you're enjoying England. I guess it's pretty fun. I know when I lived in Italy, I could fly from Sardinia, where I was, to England for like $17 to make that flight. That's absolutely nuts. All right, here we go. 8 seconds to go. And what was that? What was that? Oh, was there a foul on Ole Miss? Yeah, they caught a foul on Ole Miss. Okay. Well, this game is over. 68-65. I think South Carolina was favored by 3.5. First game that Ole Miss has lost under 5 points. They're 5-5 in the league at the moment with a trip to Rupp Arena on the agenda. Hope everybody had a good time on tonight's watch along and all of that. I hope that was fun enough. Check that out. But we'll talk to you later. I hope everybody has a good time. And tomorrow morning, we talk about the recruiting class. We talk about Jar Norris Hobson. We talk about Jackson Dart going in from year 1 to year 2 and what we can expect in year 3. And we'll have Tim Thomas tomorrow evening as well. So take care. We'll talk to you later. Hotty toddy, everyone. Good night.